London, a city built on tradition and culture. For almost 200 years, Winsor & Newton has been making the finest quality artist materials.
Welcome to Winsor & Newton here in London, England, where we've been making the world's finest artist materials since 1832. My name is Richard Goodban and I'm proud to be the Managing Director of Winsor & Newton, a brand which is synonymous with the finest in artist products worldwide. Indeed, I'm delighted to say that Winsor & Newton colours are chosen by more artists around the world than any other colour makers. And there's a reason for that. And that reason is the principles on which this company was founded, principles which today we still believe in, we still follow, we still adhere to. And those principles are straightforward. We make the highest quality product we possibly can, the highest quality paints. We make them consistently to that high standard. We search the world for the finest materials, the finest ingredients. We check them rigorously at all stages of our manufacturing. And we have a passion for what we do. Our staff, whether it's our chemists, our production engineers, our colour makers, many of whom have been working in this business since they left school or left college, absolutely believe in what we do here. And last, but by no means least of our principles, we have a tremendous heritage, but that's a heritage we're guided by, we're not bound by it. So our chemists will consistently be looking out for new ingredients, new binders, new pigments from around the world, anything that they think can enhance the artist's creative potential. Our production engineers are constantly seeking out and developing new ways to make our colour, new ways to make it better, to raise the already high standards that we have even higher. And all of this is for one purpose only, and that's you, the artist. There's not a day that goes by when someone from Winsor & Newton isn't talking to, listening to, working with an artist somewhere, trying to better understand what it is that we as colour makers can do to help you realise your creative potential. That's what we do. That's our purpose in life. And today it's the story of one of our ranges, Artist Oil Colour, a range which is unmatched for its purity, its consistency, its colour strength, its ability to help you creatively. And that's a range which we absolutely believe fundamentally supports our pledge to you, the artist, to make the world's finest artist materials. So enjoy your day with us. Thanks.
Hi, my name's Paul. I'm here in the Winsor & Newton Museum where I'm going to talk through the history of colour and artist colourmen. I'm going to start with this cabinet here on my left, which is ancient pigments from 30,000 years BC onwards. A couple of points to note in here is these are squid sacks from squid ink sacks. Every squid has an ink sac used as a defence mechanism. These are taken from the squid and then processed to produce the sepia pigment that you see behind. We also have rose madder root. You see it here in its original format, and then washed and dried root, and the final pink pigment after it's been through the laking process. Also dragon's blood in this dish here, which is the exuded from a rattan palm tree. It's a very traditional pigment that a lot of traditional artists will be familiar with. This cabinet is pigments used from medieval times onwards, so it's 13th century onwards. Three to note in here are Indian yellow at the top here, which is balls of pureed earth that cows that have been fed on mango leaves have since urinated, which gives it its characteristic yellow colour. This ceased to be used since 1921. At the bottom here we have some lapis lazuli, which is used to make ultramarine. Again, this is no longer used to make ultramarine because it's a semi-precious stone from Afghanistan, which is near extinction now. And then the third one is mummy brown, which is crushed up Egyptian mummies, which was used to make a colour called mummy brown. This was used up to the mid-19th century when artists found out its true origins and no longer became popular. So this cabinet shows the history of the artist's colour tube. Prior to 1840, colour was stored in pig's bladders, which was tightly bound at the top. The artist would load this colour up in the studio, bind the top and seal it, take the bladder out into the field. They would then pierce the bladder with a small tack and squeeze the colour out and use it. Unfortunately, this works as a one-shot wonder. Once the bladder was pierced, it was never very good for resealing. William Windsor first patented a tube in 1840, which was basically a syringe. It was a glass tube. And then shortly after that, in 1841, a gentleman called James Gough Rand brought out the first collapsible tin metal tube. It was a good design, but it wasn't perfect because he based it on the pig's bladder and had used a tack in the top of the tube to seal it, which again didn't work very well once the seal had been broken. William Windsor took this design and added the thread and cap to the top, which gave you a resealable, portable, collapsible tube. So this cabinet shows early Winsor & Newton developments. Aside from the invention of moist watercolour, they also invented Chinese white in 1834, which was the first truly opaque white watercolour. Down the bottom here we can see the Ostwald system as well, which was a mainstay of the scholastic system in the 1930s. Winsor & Newton launched a range of colours that complemented this perfectly, and it became a mainstay of teaching of its time. This is a watercolour chest commissioned to commemorate 50 years on the throne of Queen Victoria. It's like the ultimate watercolour box of its time. It fully demonstrates all the watercolour cakes that were available through Winsor & Newton's range, plus all the brushes and all the accompaniments that would be expected with your ultimate watercolour box. Okay, so this cabinet is traditional pigments from the 19th century, and what we see here now is we're starting to use metals, so oxides and dioxides of metals to produce our pigments. There's a bar of cadmium here to produce all of these different cadmium yellows, some French ultramarine at the back, and then on the bottom here you'll see some cobalt, so cobalt blue, cobalt green. There's oxide of chrome there as well, and this display case at the front is a sales presenter used in the 1890s when the Winsor & Newton salespeople would go over to the States and promote Winsor & Newton and Winsor & Newton pigments. This final cabinet here covers modern pigments, so we're now into the realms of man-made synthetic pigments. These are all purpose-built for the job, so they're incredibly intense, incredibly bright, very permanent. Much more permanent than a natural pigment that may be taken from a plant or out of the ground. Some examples here, we've got the Windsor colours, Windsor red, Windsor yellow, Windsor green and Windsor blue at the back here, permanent Alice crimson here, and then manganese blue at the front. You can instantly see the intenseness of these pigments. Okay, so that's a very brief history of colour using the artefacts from the Winsor & Newton archive. I really hope you enjoyed watching.